They don't chase money, they manipulate reality itself. Once you understand how millionaires think, you'll never see the world the same way again. They don't really chase money, they chase control. Every millionaire you see built their empire around one simple obsession: the need to command their own reality. While others crave comfort, they crave certainty. They want to know that every outcome bends to their will, that nothing happens without their permission. It's not greed, it's psychology. It's the deep hunger to never be powerless again. They've tasted what it feels like to be small, to be at the mercy of someone else's decisions, someone else's paycheck, someone else's system. And once they escape that, they swear never to return. That moment plants a seed in their mind, and from that moment forward, control becomes their religion. Every risk they take, every late night, every cold calculation, is made for one purpose: to never have to depend on anyone again. But here's the dark part. Control doesn't come without a price. The more they gain it, the less they trust. They begin to see people not as allies, but as variables, unpredictable pieces that must be managed or replaced. Relationships become transactions. Every word, every gesture, every connection is weighed and measured. It's not cruelty, it's survival. To maintain control, they have to keep emotions in check, and so, piece by piece, they strip them away. They don't seek love, they seek loyalty. They don't crave admiration, they crave obedience. Their world is built on strategy, not sentiment. Where most people act from feeling, they act from foresight. They learn to suppress impulse and delay gratification until the world bends in their favor. That's the invisible war they fight every day, between the chaos of emotion and the coldness of logic. And over time, logic wins. It always does. You'll notice it in how they speak: calm, measured, unshaken. It's not confidence, it's control. They've trained their mind to remain steady while everyone else panics. They've learned that emotions are weaknesses easily exploited. So they keep their face still, their tones steady, their eyes unreadable. That's not personality, that's power disguised as calm. Most people confuse that with arrogance. It's not, it's armor. Because in their world, chaos is everywhere, in markets, in people, in time. And control is the only weapon that keeps them safe. They micromanage everything, not because they're perfectionists, but because every loose end is a threat. Every uncertainty is an opening for failure. And they don't just fear failure, they despise it. Failure to them means vulnerability, and vulnerability feels like death. That's why they move differently. They plan when others react. They watch when others talk. They calculate when others feel. Even in silence, their mind is building, rearranging, manipulating. They are always 3 steps ahead, not because they want to be clever, but because they can't stand the idea of being surprised. Predictability is peace. Control is comfort. And yet, deep down, there's a cost that no amount of wealth can erase. The more control they have, the less they feel alive. Because control kills spontaneity. It kills the unknown. And the unknown is where humanity breathes. But they don't care. They'll trade warmth for power, chaos for order, emotion for advantage, every single time. Because at the end of the day, control is their oxygen. Without it, they suffocate. With it, they dominate. That's the psychology. That's the price. Power replaces peace. Control becomes the cage. They learned early that emotions are expensive. The more you feel, the easier you are to break. So they built walls where others built dreams. Millionaires don't rise by feeling deeply. They rise by thinking coldly. When most people hesitate, they decide. When others drown in guilt, they move on. It's not that they don't have emotions. They just refuse to let those emotions interfere with strategy. You'll notice it in the way they handle loss. While others crumble, they calculate. Pain becomes data. Rejection becomes a pattern. They don't ask, why me? They ask, what's next? That shift, right there, is what separates them from the crowd. They've trained their minds to treat emotions as noise, distractions from the signal of progress. Every tear, every fear, every doubt gets filtered out. Efficiency over empathy, outcome over feeling. They weren't always this way. Most started with heart, with hope, with people they trusted. But betrayal hardens you. failure sharpens you. Over time, they learn that emotions don't protect, they expose. The more they cared, the more they bled. So they rewired themselves, piece by piece. Empathy turned into observation. Compassion became calculation. Their warmth turned into weaponized composure. And once you cross that line, you don't come back. You start seeing the world differently. Where others see friends, you see leverage. Where others see kindness, you see weakness. You stop reacting to feelings and start manipulating them. In others, not yourself. Because emotions are currency in this world, and the ones who control them control everything. They've mastered silence. They don't argue. They observe. They don't complain. They adjust. The lack of visible emotion isn't emptiness, it's discipline. Every reaction they suppress becomes energy redirected toward power. When people insult them, they don't defend, they note. When people doubt them, they don't respond, they remember. Every interaction becomes intel. Every silence becomes strategy. That's why they seem detached, even robotic. It's not a flaw. Evolution. In a world that feeds on emotional chaos, they learn to move like ghosts, present but untouchable. They let others drown in their own storms while they walk across the waves. That's emotional control, not absence of feeling, but mastery of it. But there's a darkness underneath it. The more they shut off, the less human they become. The same armor that protects them also isolates them. It's a lonely kind of strength, the kind that keeps you awake at night, surrounded by everything you once wanted, yet unable to feel much of it. Success demands sacrifice, and they sacrificed softness. They traded peace for progress, warmth for wisdom, empathy for efficiency. People call it coldness, they call it heartless, but they're wrong. It's not heartless. It's hardened. You can't survive the climb with a fragile heart. Every level demands another layer of detachment. Every victory costs another piece of innocence. Eventually, the line between ambition and obsession blurs. They stop chasing wealth. They start chasing control over themselves, over their impulses, over their emotions, over everything that once controlled them. This is why they seem calm when others break. They've already fought those wars inside. They've buried the parts of themselves that begged for comfort. They no longer need approval, sympathy, or validation. They only need results. That's the mindset that builds empires and burns humanity. They mastered emotion by killing it, and now nothing rules them except the silence within. Money stops being money after a certain point. It turns into something else, a game, a measurement, an addiction. Millionaires don't work for bills anymore. They work for the thrill that comes with winning. It's not about survival, it's about stimulation. Every deal, every risk, every move becomes a hit of dopamine, a reminder that they still have control, that they still matter. The rush doesn't come from earning, it comes from outsmarting competition, outsmarting systems, outsmarting fate itself. At first, they tell themselves, it's just ambition, just goals, just discipline. But deep down, something darker starts to take root. Success becomes a fix. The same brain chemistry that fuels gamblers and warriors begins to drive them. The stakes rise because the feeling fades. What once thrilled them now feels ordinary, so they push further. Bigger numbers, bigger risks, bigger chaos. They need to feel that spark again, that dangerous pulse that reminds them they're still alive. This is where obsession hides. Not in greed, but in the chase. They're not counting money, they're counting moments of control. That rush when a plan works. That calm when others panic. That secret satisfaction of knowing they've played the game better than everyone else. It's not about comfort, it's about conquest. And once the game becomes their identity, there's no way out. You'll see it in their behavior. Even when they could stop, they won't. They'll keep building, keep competing, keep fighting battles they've already won. Because stillness terrifies them, peace feels empty. The adrenaline of uncertainty is what fuels them. Without it, life feels meaningless. And that's the quiet tragedy behind success. When you finally have everything, you realize you missed the fight that got you there. They start to create their own battles. They take on projects they don't need. They chase challenges that don't matter. Not for money, for the feeling. The high of pursuit, the illusion of danger, They live in a constant loop of tension and rely, chaos and control. Their mind becomes addicted to instability disguised as ambition, and slowly they stop building for progress and start building for stimulation. People call them workaholics, but that word is too soft. This isn't about work, it's about needing friction to feel alive. The silence after victory is unbearable to them. The moment the noise fades, the darkness creeps in, so they run from it. They drown it with new projects, new deals, new risks. They don't know how to rest because rest feels like death. That's why they seem fearless, but it's not fearlessness, it's dependency. They need motion the way others need oxygen. Every win buys them temporary relief, and every calm moment feels like withdrawal. It's not wealth they crave. It's that intoxicating sense of momentum, the illusion that they're always moving forward, always becoming something more. The irony is cruel. The very thing that made them powerful also enslaves them. They build empires, but they can't escape the prison of their own drive. Their victories stop feeling like triumphs and start feeling like maintenance. Every success fades faster than the last. Every high comes with a lower crash. The more they win, the emptier it feels. But stopping isn't an option. Stopping would mean facing the silence, and the silence is unbearable. They're not chasing money, they're chasing the rush, and the rush always fades. There comes a point where wealth stops fixing things. The houses get bigger, the cars get faster, the watches get heavier, but the silence inside stays the same. Millionaires rarely talk about that part, the part that feels like a quiet echo after every victory. The applause fades, the rush disappears, and what's left is a strange kind of emptiness that money can't fill. They built everything to escape insignificance, but the higher they climb, the lonelier it gets. At first they tell themselves it's just exhaustion, that they'll feel better after the next goal, the next deal, the next milestone. But the feeling doesn't fade, it deepens. Because what they're really facing isn't fatigue, it's realization. The realization that achievement doesn't equal fulfillment, that success, when stripped of struggle, feels hollow. They thought wealth would bring peace, but it only magnified the noise already inside them. They can buy comfort, but not connection. They can control the world, but not the emptiness that waits when the work stops. That's the paradox. The more they gain, the less they feel. They traded meaning for mastery, emotion for execution. The same walls that protected them from failure now isolate them from life. And when you've built your entire identity on winning, you can't admit that victory feels meaningless. So they stay quiet. They keep building. They pretend they're still chasing goals, when in truth, they're just running from the silence that follows them. They start to surround themselves with noise, people, parties, deals, distractions, anything to drown out the emptiness. But noise doesn't heal, it just hides the void for a while, and deep down they know it. They can feel the hollowness creeping in when the lights go out and no one's watching. The smile fades, the calm breaks, the thoughts return. The same question they've been avoiding whispers in the dark, what was it all for? They don't like that question, because there's no answer. There never was. The drive that made them rich came from the same place that made them restless. It wasn't about money, it was about proving something, to someone, to the world, to themselves. But once they've proved it, once they've won, there's no enemy left to fight. And that's when the mind turns inward. That's when the war begins inside. You can see it in their eyes, the quiet fatigue, the subtle emptiness, the unspoken truth that they built an empire but lost something human along the way. They became masters of control, yet prisoners of their own perfection. They achieved freedom in the world, but not within themselves. Because real freedom doesn't come from power, it comes from peace. And peace was the one thing they never learned to chase. They'll keep pretending. They'll call it legacy, expansion, evolution. But in truth, they're just trying to feel alive again. Because when the game ends, they realize something terrifying. They never wanted money, they wanted meaning. And meaning can't be bought. That's the quiet curse of success. The emptiness that hides behind the empire, the silence that follows every victory, the weight of a life that has everything except purpose. They built their kingdom to escape insignificance, but in the end, Insignificance was waiting inside the crown. They spent their lives trying to conquer the world, and they did. But somewhere in the silence after success, they realized the darkest truth of all. You can own everything, control everything, win everything, and still lose yourself.